So you decided to do your own fermentation, but you're not sure what equipment to use. Let me go show you what I have. Hey everyone, Distiller Greyling here, one of your favorite home and hobby distillers. Yes, this is my fermentation equipment that I have. A bunch of odd stuff, a bunch of normal stuff. When I started out, I did the 5-liter fermentations. As I was very unsure of how to ferment, I used small quantities. Whether it was now grain or molasses or just a sugar wash, I used these guys. As I felt more confident, I started increasing, and that's where I went to the 25-liter buckets. What was nice about these ones, it has a tap underneath, and I made a small hole for my aquarium heater. We'll get to that a bit later. After I've been using the 25-liter bucket quite extensively, I felt more confident, and I moved over to the 100-liter drums that we got here, the blue ones. We do have got the glass Cowboy there as well. It's a 13-liter one. You get it at different sizes. At the moment, I've got some neutral grain spirits in there, but you can use it as a fermentation vessel as well. That's why I have got that cap right on top. I'll show you a bit more detail how it works, but for now, you can use that as a fermentation vessel as well. If we move back to the two bottles I've got here on top, I've got two type of bubblers. The normal S bubbler, I like to call it, I use for small fermentations. Even the 25-liter one, I also use it there. You can see it just works normal bubbling. It works very fine. This guy over here is the larger one. I use it for the 100-liter drums. It still works the same. It just handles a bit more capacity, especially when I'm doing a molasses fermentation. That initial kick-off in this first day or two really bubbles a lot, and especially having the larger drums, the bigger bubbler works very brilliantly. The glass Cowboy, you actually fill the top lid with water, and then it acts as a bubbler itself. I haven't really seen it working, as I haven't really fermented anything in it yet. I think when I get to that point, I will pop a video in just to show you guys how it works. The rest of the stuff, I use Hydrometer right at the end. That is my chemical sterilizing agent. Before I ferment anything, I rinse everything with it. It's also a no-rinse sanitizer, so you can just rinse it and leave it. You don't have to clean it out with water or anything. You leave it inside. If there's a few droplets still, you leave it there. The longer it stays in contact, the better it sterilizes. So I use Hydrometer. It works for me brilliantly. Then I've got some Antifoam. Antifoam I use for my molasses fermentation, especially when I had it in the smaller ones. There's a little bit of headspace in there, and then it tends to foam a bit. Sometimes it would even push up into the bubbler itself. So when I started using Antifoam, it completely took out the necessary for worrying too much about it. In the 25-liter bucket, I fill it up at about 20 liters for a molasses fermentation. I've never had an issue with the foam pushing up to the bubbler, so I only ever used the Antifoam for the smaller ones, but it's up to you. It's how you feel it, it's how you want to use it. Rest, what we got here. Alright, I've got some yeast and yeast nutrients. Obviously, yes, important. You need the yeast to attack the sugars to convert them into alcohol. Go check out my video of Back to Basics of Fermentation where I explain it nicely. I've got a small kitchen scale. It's accurate to 0.01 grams. Quite happy with it. It's got a max capacity of 500 grams. So I especially will use it when I measure out the yeast and nutrients. Even when I do the citric acid and potassium carbonate. We'll get to those guys now. I measure small amounts, 10, 20, 50 grams at a time. I don't want to add too much, but it has come in handy, and it's very quite accurate, especially if you want to get those precision grams out. It works brilliantly. This is my normal digital thermometer. I just use it to check my temperature of my mash or my fermentation. Always make sure that before I add my yeast or nutrients, I've got about a 10 or less than 10 degrees Celsius difference between the wash and the ambient temperature outside. especially like now in the winter. I would take out my yeast a lot earlier than normal and try and get it up to temperature. Don't leave it in the sun directly, just leave it inside your garage or in the shade, that it just goes up slowly to room temperature. I do put it in the fridge when I'm done, as I want to prolong the life. I don't use all of it every time. It's good practice. Keep it in the fridge so it will stay healthier for longer. Digital pH meter. Yes, very important to measure your pHs. That's why we got the potassium carbonate and the citric acid. If you want to decrease your pH, if it's too high and you want to bring it down, you use an acid. That's the citric acid I've got here. If your pH is too low and you want to increase it, then we use an alkaline, and I use potassium carbonate. There is a lot of other products you can use. It doesn't say you must use these two, but just remember, acid brings it down and an alkali pushes it back up again. This is my 3-scale SG hydrometer. Yes, I keep it in the holder because it is glass and I do not want to break it. But on here you will see it's got a Brix measurement. We've got an SG, the specific gravity measurement, as well as a potential alcohol measurement. That's what we use before you say. What I like to do before I add my yeast, I measure my sugar content and write it down, and then I can also see what will the potential alcohol maybe be. As it progresses and it ends up with almost being 0 Brix, I can then work out and say more or less what my potential alcohol will be. But it doesn't mean it will be that. Just be careful on the alcohol meter on the side. It says potential alcohol reading. You don't want to use it and to say, yeah, this will be it. It's got the potential to be that. That's it for the 3-scale SG hydrometer. Always keep it safe. Put it in a holder or put it somewhere where you know it's safe. Be careful of it rolling off the table and breaking. They are very sensitive, but they work brilliantly. These two guys are just my normal paddle for stirring, and the paint mixer I put on a drill that I help stirring. I use this one especially in the 25 litre and the 100 litre drums. Obviously for the 5 litre one it's not going to fit. We talked about aeration in the back to basics. It also helps when you stir it to bring that air back into your fermentation, especially for that initial phase when the yeast needs that oxygen to start reproduction. For the smaller ones, like I said, I will just shake it and make sure air is back inside. It helps quite a lot. Also want to talk about heat control. I talked about the 25 litre drum that I have got this on top. It is for my aquarium heaters. I use stainless steel inside my vessels. I can also show you there. See, it will just hang inside. I use the stainless steel inside the fermenters because I don't want to use glass of the potential that it can break, and then there's glass bits inside the fermentation itself. I want to show you guys on the lid what I use. I was struggling to get my aquarium heater inside without breaking the seal of the drum itself. So I added these electrical sockets that you actually use. Put a small seal inside. I push the wire through it, and then I just screw it on tightly, and as I screw it on tightly it seals, and it makes a very good and tight seal. So if you ever wondered how I do it, just a plain electrical socket and it works brilliantly. For the smaller containers, I struggled in the first to find out how I'm going to keep them warm, especially if it's in the winter and it gets very cold. Then I came up with the water bath on a suggestion from my wife. For the water bath, I use a Hydrometer. You can see this is a glass one. When I started using the larger ones with the stainless steel, I had a glass one that broke, and luckily it broke off clean, so I could be able to salvage the wash that was still in there. But yes, I moved to stainless steel for inside the fermentation and glass steel for the water bath. So this is a very plain and simple showcase of the equipment I use for fermentation. If you've got any more questions, you can leave it at the bottom. I will gladly help to answer you. If you like the content, please like and subscribe. I'll be making more videos coming out. And for the rest of you guys, remember to be awesome, to be kind, and be yourself. Cheers.